Let's listen to our boy Sean here.
Yeah, our members work very hard. They work a lot of hours. UPS has a rhetoric saying that the full timers make $93,000 per year, but that's not their base pay. They're working 60, 65 hours per week, getting forced in on their days off. And the part timers, 100,000 part timers throughout UPS make less than $20 per hour. And these are the unsung heroes. These are the folks that load the packages, unload the packages on the truck so that we can provide goods and services to this country. Through the pandemic, our members were forced to work in awful conditions with no regard for their own health and safety. We lost members who died. All the while, UPS's profits doubled. They made $100 billion last year. They rewarded their stockholders 50% increase in their dividends, and they have lucrative bonuses for CEOs and executives. All the while, none of those folks ever touched a package or helped provide any goods and services to this country. Our members need to be rewarded.
You're touching on what I keep hearing from union leaders. I was talking to Fran Drescher the other day, and she was decrying the amount of money that the studio heads were making compared to what the average actor was making. And
he's so sick. I love cop-coded union leaders, dude.
This is the same thing you're saying here. Look at what these CEOs are making compared to what the average workers are making. What specifically do you want from UPS? How much more money, break time, et cetera? What is it?
It comes down to economics. We solved 95% of the non-economic issues on behalf of our members. Now it's strictly down to money. We tried to get the deal done July 5th. 4:15 a.m. UPS walked out and said they have no more money to give. So it's all about economics right now. The company, we have been putting pressure on the company publicly, doing informational picketing, practice picketing. And so they called us on Wednesday and asked if we could meet next week to try and get a deal.
How do you feel watching the steady momentum of union organize happening? I know you like it, obviously, but the feeling of actually seeing this come to fruition must feel validating. I mean, it makes me happy, but it also, in some ways, is kind of sad because strikes are difficult. And strikes only happen as a consequence of capital owners refusing to make an honest effort at the negotiations process. So I don't think it's it makes me excited to see it, but it's certainly a weird situation because I do also find it like really shitty that it has to get to this point. You know what I mean? Like no one that's something you guys have to remember. Like, yeah, a lot of you guys who are not in unions or not striking probably look to that and go, oh, strikes, pug, sick. But like no one really wants to strike. It's a last resort because, you know, the uncertainty is terrifying. You know what I mean? Like you're not making the same pay. Like there's a lot of issues there. It sucks financially. It's not great. It's hardship. So and then there are additional tertiary industries that are impacted by this as well. So, not great. Strike funds exist because it's financial hardship. Exactly.
Who is helping us organize Amazon.
That's Lindsay back there, the head of Teamsters Hollywood.
Amazon, right? And the Amazon workers right here, right? So we have one. And I want to recognize Sean Martin.
I'm down for the union, but the stress of financial stability during the strike, especially with a newborn, is scary. Yeah, I know. I just always remember it's not happening because of the union. It's happening because the bosses refuse to negotiate in good faith. That's the issue. You know what I mean? But in a way, I mean, it is definitely inspirational. I do find it to be inspiring. It's probably the only aspect of American existence right now, and American like American politics that is genuinely making a difference. So that is good. You know? And I do hope that people see this momentum and then move to create that same mechanism of power in their own workplaces. So my hope is that people see this and they feel inspired to go and unionize themselves.
Look around. Okay, across the street, we have a delivery truck carrying food
Here
to
it is.
offices, construction sites all around.
This is from More Perfect Union. They are covering, I used to make 100K as a trucker, now I make minimum wage.
Sheetrock. Where'd he come from? On a truck. Nothing moves.
I'll be
without
back.
us. Many owner-operators now are homeless. They cannot afford to have a home. This is my home. I live with my truck, whether I stay in a hotel or I sleep sitting up in the driver's seat. This is my home. Why? I work 12 to 14 plus hours a day, but I don't earn enough.
This is Billy Randall. He's been a long-haul trucker for over 30 years. We're working on a new series now about jobs in America that used to be stable and middle class and are all but gone. One of the most dramatic shifts from good job to bad job is in the trucking industry. Trucking used to be one of the most coveted blue-collar jobs in America. The average trucker made $110,000 a year. That's enough to raise a family and have a home. Now many of them, like Billy, are barely making minimum wage.
We're tired of being the back of the economy because our backs are broken.
We're going to unpack exactly what happened through the stories of two truckers that are struggling. One who's been a driver for decades and one who's trying to make a life for himself in the industry. This is The Classroom for More Perfect Union, and today we're looking at why truckers can't make a living.
All hours worked, all hours paid.
I met Billy at a rally in DC with the Truckers Movement for Justice. Billy's a little bit of a wild man. He's currently trying to lead strikes in the coal mines of West Virginia and the oil fields of Texas, and I think he might pull it off. Billy has a vision that truckers would be organized again after 40 years of not having power. Let's go back a little bit. This might be what you think of when you think of a trucker. An outlaw, a guy on the road with nothing to lose. But in reality, a lot of them lived pretty regular lives and went home to their families every night.
It was a hard, dirty job, but it was a good job.
The truckers I met in Washington all had the same complaints.
A breakdown, honestly, it'll put me out of bed.
I don't want to lose my company. I don't want to lose my trucks. I don't want to lose my home.
The pay is low, the cost of doing business is high. Let's get back to Billy. Like 350,000 other drivers in America, Billy is an owner-operator, meaning he owns his own truck. It also means he's responsible for the overhead, repairs, insurance, maintenance. And if something goes wrong, it can cost him.
Today the truck broke down. A very minor repair, but nonetheless, it created a problem with the delivery. I've got, not to publicize this, $1,200 to my name.
Truckers like to say if you bought it, a truck brought it. Truckers take great pride in that work, but that work can often be pretty tough for them.
This is Steve Vaselli, a former truck driver who's been studying the industry for over a decade. Steve says one of the main causes of wage decreases was deregulation. Before the 1930s, trucking was unregulated and stuck in boom and bust cycles. The economy would be strong and things would be moving in trucks, and then suddenly there would be a downturn and truckers were out of work. Trucking is so crucial to the economy that in 1935, the federal government started heavily regulating the industry by setting shipping.
I don't understand. I thought that deregulation was good. What are these guys talking about? I'm a big fan of deregulation. That's right. These truckers don't know what they're talking about. Deregulation? Well, what about the GDP? That's right. And no, I'm not talking about the goddamn proletariat. I'm talking about the GDP, folks. Domestic product. Very good. The freer the market, the freer the people.
Prices and limits on how many trucks could be on the road.
The federal government essentially set the rates for trucks. If you were going to move steel from Youngstown to New York,
line goes up.
You would go to something called the Interstate
Everyone's
Commerce
happy.
Commission, and you would say to them, hey, my costs to move this steel are $1 a mile. And the Interstate Commerce Commission would say, well, okay, then you can charge $1.06 per mile to your customers, whether it's U.S. Steel or a mom and pop machine shop that needs to move it.
Freight was moved from terminal to terminal, where local deliveries would combine smaller loads together and send them to the next terminal through long-haul truckers.
What that meant for drivers was a lot of them were home every night and they had regular schedules. It also meant that those terminals were easier to unionize.
The whole industry was unionized and regulated under the National Master Freight Agreement, negotiated by the Teamsters, which was one of the most powerful unions in the United States. That all ended when Jimmy Carter signed the Motor Carrier Act of 1980 in an effort to lower prices for consumers. This was a bipartisan effort.
You probably don't think of truckers as timid people, but that's because you haven't seen how some of them react when you say competition.
Republicans, Democrats, and industry were all involved. And in a way, deregulation worked. Prices went down for consumers and rates went down for shippers. And it opened up competition so that the larger stores, think Walmart, Kmart, Costco, could haggle for lower prices. Remember that under regulation, the government set shipping prices for all stores, big and small. So deregulation brought us the world of cheap shipping that we live in now.
What that meant for truck drivers was a lot of really bad jobs.
Thousands of smaller trucking companies went out of business in the 1980s, and something else changed that made the job harder. Freight started moving point to point, from the shipper's location all the way to the customer.
For drivers, that means that, they're living out of the truck. They're essentially working 24 hours a day, and they can't know exactly when they're going to be home.
And the thing is, truckers don't make overtime. That's right. Truckers are one of the few workers that are exempt from overtime in our labor laws. So a trucker can be working 100 hours a week and not make close to minimum wage. All of these changes have created a labor crisis. The turnover rate at most companies is now well over 100%. That's why every year the American Trucking Association claims there's a...
They can't. Guess what? Some of these distances are long. Some of these distances are vast. You do not understand it. If they ask for overtime, what would that do to our profits? How is that physically possible? It's called methamphetamine. It's called narcolepsy medication. Literally, which, by the way, is incredibly dangerous, not just for the driver and his health or her health, but also for other drivers on the fucking road, which is why accidents happen all the fucking time.
Driver shortage.
80,000 drivers short amid the supply chain crisis.
This historic trucker shortage again.
And in less than a decade, it's projected to get even worse.
Billy is 71 years old, and the average driver is 48 years old. The industry needs younger drivers to enter the business and stay, like Caleb Fernandez. Unlike Billy, he's a company driver, and he's paid by the mile. He also uses the company's truck. While Caleb doesn't have the same expenses as Billy, he has to worry about something else: surveillance.
The biggest problem solving that I do in my day is working so that I can be legal in the regulations.
In 2017, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration introduced electronic logging devices.
So I've got 6 hours left that I can work until tomorrow.
These logs are meant to keep the drivers from working too long and to make sure they take breaks. But what it really does is mess with trucker autonomy.
It tracks my location and knows if I've been moving the truck around, so I can't lie and say that I've been driving less hours than I have been. So it lets you know on the e-log if you're doing something illegal. It'll warn you, hey, wait a minute.
Drivers start the clock and have 14 hours to work before they have to take a 10-hour rest. During that shift, they can only drive for 11 hours and take 3 hours for stops or deliveries. The problem is, they might get stuck waiting on a load, or they might break down, or they might need to take a long nap, but the clock keeps running.
A lot of shippers and receivers will be unreliable in terms of their appointment times. And so then that can ruin my hours of service. It can also ruin my next pickup or drop. It can be pretty stressful as well.
And because a lot of drivers like Caleb are paid by the mile, they want to keep moving.
It forces drivers to drive in dangerous conditions and when they're tired.
Truckers have been keeping logs for decades, but before they were paper logs. And the fact is, those were easier to fake. And look, we're not advocating for cheating. These safety regulations are really important. No one wants drivers on the road that have been working for too long or who are tired. The problem is, these e-logs are really restrictive, and drivers can't make their own schedule. The laws as they're written are really hard to follow. And besides...
You'd be like, well, do they not make accommodations for time blindness? I don't understand.
E-logs aren't actually making the road safer. A 2019 study showed that since the e-logs were introduced, accidents didn't go down. They stayed about the same. But something else went up. Drivers were speeding more to make up for the lost time on the road.
We've put them in this, trade-off between, their paycheck and safety, unfortunately.
Billy thinks that one way to encourage safe driving is to increase pay. Then drivers aren't as worried about racing for the next load and the next paycheck.
This guy looks cool as fuck,
We
by
want
the
to
way.
be paid all hours.
I know he was in the
worked,
beginning,
all
I forgot
hours
to
paid.
mention.
We're sitting loading and unloading for more than 30 minutes at a given facility. We want to be paid for it.
Billy and Caleb both love what they do.
Oh yeah, this is a
and
huge
wanna
point of
stay in the
contention for
industry.
truckers.
We started this video looking at why trucking used to be a good job and why it isn't anymore. Deregulation made a lot of products cheap, really cheap, but at a serious cost to workers. Like Billy said, nothing moves in this country without truckers, and they should get paid for all the time they're working. There's a bill right—
Here's the part that's also not correct entirely. Deregulation didn't just make products cheap. Products also were made cheap while profits skyrocketed. So you can still make products that are, cost effective, not as costly to the consumer, and not punish your workforce to endlessly try to increase shareholder value. That's the issue. The issue is that, you can still make products that are cheap. A lot of it already is cheap because of subsidies. Okay? A lot of these things are already cheap and affordable because of our tax dollars that end up contributing to what is known as subsidies, which is the reason why food is so affordable. Agricultural production is entirely geared around where the government and how the government gives you money to make it, right? So that's how this process works. It could be still affordable, and also the people that are delivering the food to you, the people that are packaging it, the people that are playing a role in taking it out of the fucking ground, if it's vegetables, they could also be paid better, but that would come at a cost for the real earners, the real productive members of society. I'm, of course, referring to the shareholders. Just think about that. The top 10% of wealth in this country own 90% of the entire stock market. Those are the guys who vote. Those are the guys who the American government cares about. Those are the capital owners. That is what this entire economy is geared towards.
right now that would change the Fair Labor Standards Act and make truckers eligible for overtime. Second, safety regulations need to give drivers more flexibility. Truckers can track their time and take breaks without such strict oversight. And Billy thinks that ultimately the job won't get any better unless drivers themselves take action.
Shut up, chat. Food is affordable. The problem is wages have not been adjusted with inflation. I mean, dude, chatters are so funny being like, food is affordable, ? Yeah, motherfucker. In America, food is fucking affordable. In comparison to other countries, what are you, crazy? Yeah, sure, there's like Japan and shit, but yes, food is fucking still affordable in comparison to other places. It's true. Inflation is unironically food becoming less affordable, yes, and we know why it has happened.
It wasn't like this when we were organized, and we're the only ones that can change it. Owner-operators and company drivers. When we organize, then things will change.
Thanks for watching The Classroom for more Perfect Union. Like we said,
anyway, especially non-junk food like fruit and vegetables, as long as it's not organic. Anyway, I know inflation is fake because weed has only gotten better and the price hasn't moved or gotten lower. Yeah. Motherfuckers be like, yeah, food is affordable. What do you mean? You're crazy. DoorDash is $150 a day for me. What are you talking about? Anyways, I was stating, though, yes, there are other places where food is cheaper, of course. But ultimately, due to greedflation in the United States of America and corporate consolidation that makes it easy to do greedflation, food has become less affordable. It's called inflation, where the cost of living goes up for items that you need to survive. Anyway. Here's Andrew Schultz. How come under socialism you get tiny food, but under capitalism you get eat big burger? Socialism, everyone gets equal pieces of this. Capitalism, each person gets one of these. Is this a meme or is this real? I can't tell if this is like a thing making fun of how stupid Turning Point USA memes are, or if it's actually a stupid Turning Point USA meme. I can't tell. Why is it always a burger? Because Americans are hamburger people, okay? We are burger people. Let's be fucking real. This is how we operate. This is what we love.